This is Aussie Mac Zone. We'll cover everything Apple, including Macs, iPhones, iPads, and more. All this from an Aussie perspective. Sit back, relax, insert yourself into the zone. The Aussie Mac Zone.
Hi everybody, welcome to show 313, take 2 of Aussie Mac Zone. Zarn was with me when we did it live last night, but there's no way I can clean the audio up, so I've got to do it from scratch again. So apologies to everyone that was listening on Facebook for a while last night. We did finally work out what it was. There was a second microphone turned on. Don't know how it got turned on. Wasn't turned on last week and I haven't turned the machine off, so I don't know what's going on. I apologise. So this week, brought to you by IT Help to You and Microseconds. Now, our Aussie Apple ramblings have started out. I got an email. Firstly, it was pointed out to me today that iTunes only had to episode 310 on some devices, but for example, Overcast had up to episode 311 and some had 312. I will try to find out what is going on and how to resolve it. Reminder, you can listen to the YouTube video feed. And what a few months it's been with our audio and video and now download issues. Cannot wait for the new year. So, story 1. I got an email during the week that read, I'm reaching out because we've just published Internet Safety 101, the Ultimate Parent's Guide. It's an easy to follow and super practical parent guide that distills all the essential knowledge into one magazine style web page, i.e. beautiful design, imagery and typography. You can see it here at wetheparents.org/internet-safety-for-parents. Of course, there's a link in the notes. Our aim was to create something less dry than the usual internet safety stuff. Something that busy mums and dads can engage with and digest. So would we be interested in linking to it? Well, we're not only linking to it, we're talking about it. Now, they asked me to do it before Christmas, which I've done. That's when a huge number of kids and young people are gifted their first digital device. And of course, we hope that you appreciate the information that's in there. The Canadian Gov's Education Department did, and they just featured and linked to us from their website. So that was from Neve Spicer, founder and director, wetheparents.org. So good luck to them, and I hope everyone here finds it beneficial. Now, what about this? A bit of Apple history. An Apple floppy disk signed by Steve Jobs from the late 80s has popped up on an auction site, and it can be yours for a mere $8,800. The disk for Macintosh System Tools version 6, an early precursor to Mac OS, has been verified, in other words pre-certified, as genuine, as has Jobs' signature. It is thought to be extremely rare, as the late CEO and founder of Apple didn't autograph much during his lifespan, so R&R Auction describes it as a museum-quality piece of computing history. It placed an initial estimate of $7,500, although it has now been exceeded. The bidding currently stands at $8,000 at the time of writing, so the next bidder needed to commit $8,800. However, even that might not secure the disc, and the auction does not finish until next week. In addition, a 25% buyer's premium will be added to the final hammer price, which is commission basically. So if you really want a piece of Apple history, you'll need to have fairly deep pockets. That said, it'll probably end up working out to be the cost of roughly 2 of the highest end MacBook Pros that are currently available in the Apple Store. Not bad when you think about it. Now, the federal government announces crackdown on Australia's 500 million phone scam problem. Authorities are predicting phone scams will leave Australians a record 500 million out of pocket this year alone, prompting the government to announce a crackdown. I think last year was 488 million. Key points. The Communications Authority launched a review into phone scams 18 months ago. The first of 3 recommended trials into combating phone scams has already been launched. Telcos have backed the trials and are creating an enforceable industry code to fight scammers. The Australian Communications and Media Authority, ACMA, says phone scams have been growing in prevalence since it launched a review 18 months ago into how to better combat the problem. Scam phone calls can involve scammers purporting to be from well-known organisations like the Australian Taxation Office or the National Broadband Network, and are aimed at deceiving people into handing over their information or paying money, or they ask for the numbers off iTunes cards or Google Play cards or Apple Music cards. And they never do that. No one wants that over the telephone that's legal. Please. Another common technique known as the Wangiri method, Wangiri, which is a Japanese means one ring and cut, involves a scammer calling and immediately hanging up. Those who call the number back are charged an expensive premium call rate. So the scammers have to be involved with the suppliers, because otherwise they wouldn't have an expensive premium call rate. They wouldn't be able to get the money from Vodafone or whatever. So they must have... Anyway, I can't go into that. Regulator recommends 3 scam busting trials. ACMA has now recommended the rollout of these 3 trials. The first will use a do not originate list, which compiles a list of numbers scammers use when trying to disguise their calls as if they're coming from trusted organisations. The second trial will look at whether telecommunications companies can identify and block Wangiri style calls. The third will try to pinpoint overseas phone numbers being used for scams. The Federal Communications and Cyber Safety Minister Paul Fletcher said the first trial was now underway and the government would start the 2 other trials early next year. This has been a growing problem, with scammers using the phone numbers of organisations like the Tax Office and the NBN, so the telcos will be trialling measures to block this, Mr Fletcher said. So yeah, thank you, Mr Fletcher. Now, reminder that this week we are brought to you by Microseconds, www.microseconds.com.au. Now I'll just read a bit of what he's written down. Now, Microseconds has acquired some rather nice MacBook Pro 15-inch Retinas mid-2015, which is the one everybody likes, and the keyboard's going to last forever. These are the bee's knees as far as functionality goes. Add to that the nice feel of the trackpad and keyboard, the revolutionary Iris Pro graphics chip, and the spec'd out memory and hard drive. They are a great alternative to the new models. Instead of spending over $4,000 on the new MacBook Pros, these models are lucratively priced. The 2.2 units with 16 gig of memory and a 500 gig SSD come in at $1,650. While the faster 2.5 models with similar memory and hard drive are a steal at $1,800. Now this is from Microseconds, www.microseconds.com.au, and I personally have known the owner for at least 30 years. I recommend them. Yes, I do work for them. I do their warranty repairs, and I trust them implicitly, not a problem. I buy equipment off them. So remember, Microseconds. They're in Ultimo in Sydney, and they will send to anywhere in the world. So yeah. Now normally I'd hand over to Zarn now to do the gaming, but because he is slaving away at work for a change, gaming. So he talked about this on Facebook last night. Way of the Turtle. What a great little game. It reminds me of Mario or Banjo-Kazooie. It was just fun to play. When I lost all my lives, I died and had to start back at my last save point. It was almost relaxing. I'm going to give it 3 apples out of 5 for nostalgia. And of course, the link to it in the notes. Yeah. His second gaming was Big Time Sports, and this is where the characters that you're playing have huge bodies and little tiny heads on the bodies. So I laughed at this game so much. The oversized bodies and little heads were awesome. Each mini game is just such great fun. I did find that once you reached a certain score, it didn't go up any further, but that was a minor detail to me because I was having so much fun playing it. And he was telling us last night, he was like, he's just there playing it, giggling his heart out. His wife's going, "What are you laughing at? What are you laughing? What are you doing?" So, it's that sort of game. You can just sit there, unwind, and again, he gave it 3 out of 5 apples. Now, music. Apple have released Apple Music Replay. It will load up Apple Music, possibly in a web version that could take a moment to load, and ask you to log in. That will then show you what you've been listening to on Apple Music throughout the year. The longer you've been using Apple Music, the more variation will be there, and it updates each week. How I heard of this, and with extra insights and Siri shortcuts for it, was part of a podcast, Connected, episode 210. So I've got a link to that part of the Connected podcast in the show notes, and of course a link to replay.music.apple.com. Really interesting to know what you've been listening to, especially if you're just cruising along listening, and then all of a sudden you can get an insight of what you've been listening to. It's excellent. Now, another bit of information I got this week is from the sweetsetup.com, if you know them. How to take great holiday photos. There's a link in the notes to an awesome write-up by photographer Erin Brokes. It starts, "Holiday photos are all about mood. It's a warm and bright season with so many fun get-togethers, events, colours and lights. In many places around the world, it's also colder and darker, which means shooting lots of photos indoors. Here are my tips to capturing beautiful memories that reflect this cosy and festive time of the year." And it's got sample photos and advice on how to achieve these quality pics. And it's got photos from DSLRs, it's got photos from iPhones 10, iPhones, I think 11 Max were in there, but the thing is, she explains just easily how to take the photo, what to look for, how to light the kids from the back, how to light someone when they're just with their face against a window, all that sort of stuff. How to light kids with the Christmas tree when they're behind them, but you still want to see their face, all that sort of thing. So yeah, there is a link to the Sweet Setup, and I recommend you just sit there. It only takes 10 minutes, and then you can go back and refer back to it. So yeah, excellent. Now, also a reminder this week, we are brought to you by ithelptoyou.com.au. Now, the idea is, you want Mac stuff done, we can sort it out for you, whether it's a Mac or Mac server, upgrading to FileMaker, for example. Remember, they're getting rid of Mac server, so FileMaker have to do some major changes, all that sort of stuff. So, if you need anything done for your Mac, old or new, ithelptoyou.com.au. Thank you. And just a quick shout out, hello to Steve overseas. He knows who it is. So yeah, glad you're still listening, rocking on, even though all of our trials and tribulations lately. Now again, Apple's Christmas video 2019. Again, a video that is heartwarming and yes, gooey. It shows the fun of having kids, parents will get what I mean here, and the creativity the kids can come up with. No spoilers here, you'll have to go and watch it yourself, and for those of us who work too much at our screen, catch up with last year's Christmas video as well, as a reminder not to work so hard, especially over the break. So there's links to the 2019 Christmas video on YouTube and the 2018 Christmas video on YouTube, or just do a search for them, of course. Now, my wife Karen had a challenge today. So, force restart your iPhone. Now, I'll start with the premise that your normal power off method does not work. When my wife called and asked how to turn off her iPhone, and she only had a screen with a spinning wheel, I first suggested the normal shutdown method, which showed nothing on the screen but dialed emergency services. So that's Liz. She then apologised and hung up. Yes, they can trace it, but it wasn't a deliberate call. There are 3 methods depending on your iPhone model. For an iPhone 10 and later, of iPhone 8 or an iPhone 8 Plus, you press and release the volume up button, you press and release the volume down button, then you press and hold the side button, and when the Apple logo appears, release the button. For an iPhone 7 or 7 Plus, press and hold both the volume down button and the sleep wake button. When the Apple logo appears, release the buttons. Or for the 6S, 6S Plus or SE, press and hold the sleep wake button and the home button, and when the Apple logo appears, release the buttons. And Siri's there to help me out. And that's funny because we're just about to come to a story where Siri's helping the presenter out. So, Apple Watch Siri awkwardly interrupts on-air meteorologist and contradicts his forecast. Apple Watch recently made an unplanned appearance on a BBC broadcast this week after a meteorologist accidentally activated the assistant. Meteorologist Thomas Scheffernecker, apologise if it's wrong, was delivering his forecast on BBC Thursday when Siri chimed in to help. Scheffernecker was describing the cold and snowy conditions around many parts of the United States, but Siri had other ideas. As Scheffernecker was talking about the snow throughout the United States and outlined the possibility of snow in Europe, Siri chimed in to say that there was no snow in the forecast. Now, while Scheffernecker tried to quickly move on, the BBC anchor didn't let the blunder slide. There is snow in your forecast, I thought, the anchor pointed out. Yeah, but it obviously doesn't know the place I'm talking about, Scheffernecker said. You can watch the awkward interaction below, which is a link, of course, to the Apple News page. Now, thank you for putting up with just boring old me. The show notes link each week on show upload, the link being aussiemaxzone.com.au/AMZ313 this week. There you'll see the last 6 weeks' shows and show notes. You can email Michael or Zarn at aussiemaxzone.com.au. Spotify, just search for Aussie Max Zone, or the Apple News. Just go open Apple News, do a search for Aussie Max Zone, and then favourite us just by tapping the heart. Thanks to our sponsors this week being Microseconds and IT Help to You. Thank you very much. And more importantly, our supporters, you, our listeners, the most important people. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't send over to across to Zarn now for the close off, but you know what it is. I'm not going to do it and spoil it for him. So thank you, everybody, and we'll catch up perfectly next week. Fingers crossed.